Kia ora koutou e te whānau, ko Kaiti te maunga, ko Waipa Aotearoa, no Tūranganui e Kiwa ahau, hei oi ana ke kirikiri roa taku noho nāianei, ko Ngāti Kotamana te iwi, ko Scott Payne te hapu, ko Judy taku mama, ko David taku papa, ko Nikki taku hoa wahine, ko Kaya rātou, ko Lani, ko Neve taku tamahini, ko Tony Gray toko ingoa, ko au te tumuaki o te ao marama, no reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Yeah, nice to see some familiar faces on there. I'm principal of Te Ao Marama, and nice to be able to be here and chat and share some things.
Thanks, Tony. Ko tēnei taku mihi ki ngā tangata whenua o te rohi nei, ka mihi hoki au ki ngā tohu o te rohi nei, ko Lisa Kavanagh toko ingoa, no Airani o ka tipuna, ko Ashby rawa ko Akif o ki whānau, I whānau mai au kirikiri roa, I pākeki mai au I Oni Poto, ko matamata me kāpiti ako takahanga waiwai, kei waiuku ahau e noho ana I Nainei, he tumuaki ahau ki te kura o ngā kōrua, e hara takutoa I te toa takatahi, engari he toa takatini. It's a real honour to be here. I feel like a little bit of a fraud being a Pākehā woman talking about mana whenua engagement and Te Ao Māori, but certainly happy to share experiences as a Pākehā working within this space and working to honour Te Ao Māori and the mana whenua of our local area through our work as a kura. So I'm looking forward to sharing my experiences so far.
And I sort of picking up really from what Lisa mentioned about, you know, feeling a little bit, it's a bit of a strange situation having Pākehā sharing these stories of mana whenua engagement. And so I thought we would just set the scene as tangata tiriti in this space. This is a quote from Maria Tibble, who was somebody that I used to work with, privileged to be able to work with and learn from. And she wrote this blog post called Humari a few years ago, and sadly died suddenly and far too young a couple of years ago. But her words and her actions live on as a testament. And so this word Humari, humility, sort of that idea of a lack of ego or the ability as a leader to listen, to step into others' shoes, is to find out what's really important for them and their tamariki. And so as facilitators in this space, and especially in this kaupapa of mana whenua engagement, we know that as Pākehā, as tangata tiriti, we can bring our expertise to help weave the worlds of our tamariki into a distinctive curriculum reflective of the haukainga and cognizant of people's needs. But we can only do that by listening, by building relationships and working in partnership with mana whenua. We have to do, Maria was a big one for saying we have to do the mahi before the mahi. And it seems counterintuitive in our Pākehā world when there's always lots of timetables and we've got to get things done by a certain date, but we actually have to go slowly in order to go fast. So I'll let you just read her words on the screen.
Given all that that you've been going through, particularly related to this kaupapa, but it might not be, what would be one of your biggest pieces of advice for those leading their staff through a school build transformation project?
Yeah, sure thing. Kia ora koutou again. Lots of things. So to come down to the one thing, we've got a whole series of mantra here, and I guess one that I always come back to is your golden circle model, Simon Sinek, coming back to what is your why and making sure that's at the forefront. We actually often talk about a fourth circle sitting in the middle, and actually think the golden circles would be even stronger. So we actually come back to the fourth circle in the middle, our who, and we talk about that a lot, the importance of culture in general, school-wide culture, but I often rationalise the importance of staff culture as the number one most important thing to have right, leading through any significant change, leadership, change management project. So whether you're a foundation school in that incredible context, or whether just leading a massive build project change around is the importance of organisational culture, of which our other kaupapa for this meeting, mana whenua, of course, is part of that as well. So not everything's actually about the kids. A lot is actually about looking after the people that you work with, because if you get that right, they will in turn look after the tamariki. Over to you, Lisa.
Kia ora, thanks, Tony. I asked my lead team this question today and asked them what they would say, because it was really hard to pin it down to just one thing. And it was really interesting. We all had the same thing, and perhaps a little bit related to our context. And it came down to the idea of holding our own ideas lightly. There's, any sort of massive redevelopment project, whether it be curriculum or property or both, is going to be fraught with change. And the idea that our own mātauranga has value, but the strength and the collective mātauranga of the wider group, both within and beyond the school, has been pretty important for us. So approaching every new situation as a learner, and from a Pākehā perspective, working alongside mana whenua, the number of times that we've had to stop and rethink, and that idea of slowing down before we can go fast, to learn about the context and the settings first before we move forward, has been something we've had to do a lot. And so sometimes that means suspending our own reality so we can take on board other people's realities and collect that full picture. And in doing that on a regular basis, we've been able to seize the opportunities and all of the challenges that have come along, which has been absolute gold. So holding ideas lightly, recognising the strength of the collective mātauranga, and seizing the opportunities in every challenge, kind of the three-legged stool, I guess.
Tony, I'm just going to open up and hand over to you. If you have any further sort of whakaaro that have come about from the session today, or other things that are top of mind for you. Kia ora.
Yeah, sure thing. I looked at some of the chat and in our breakout, and I think a lot of you are from the Auckland area. So fortunately for us here, we are in mana whenua is one iwi for us. Different parts of Hamilton Waikato aren't, and it does present some challenges because they're somewhat conflicting hapu, I guess. Whereas I know up in Auckland there's massive numbers of areas. So things are formalised quite nicely in this region, which makes it easier. Ministry of Education is really strong in this area, and I've got some good partnerships. I know not all areas are as fortunate as that. My previous school sort of sat right on the fence between two. We didn't see eye to eye, and I guess I was guilty of just put it in the too hard basket. That's probably my biggest regret at my previous school, is actually to try harder to engage, try to find that connection and partnership with somebody. That can be hard. Different iwi are well formalised. Fortunately, Ngāti Wairere for us is incredible. They are well organised. We have mana whenua representation on our board, and an exceptionally strong relationship, enhanced by our kahui ako, which has built local curriculum, websites, etc. in that area. So I guess if you're in a situation where it's a little bit tricky, don't not engage, just keep trying, try to find who that connection is. In terms of our students, we have students with 28 different iwi. Not many are actually from Ngāti Wairere. I think only 2 students are. So part of it is actually getting their aspirations and wishes as a collective. But we always come back to this land in mana whenua, which in our region, the Kingitanga movement is massive. Māori King, literally just 5 minutes down the road at Ngāroa Wahia. So you keep making that effort to engage.
Thanks, Tony. Lisa, have you got any thoughts from today that you'd like to share?
Just following on from what Tony said about the overlapping mana whenua in Auckland, it is really complicated. It's really tricky to get to the heart of that without talking to people. Mana whenua between themselves work actually quite well, and across the different iwi, they are talking with each other all the time. And what I've come to understand more recently is that they do have kind of unwritten and unlisted boundaries of who kind of works with the different schools in the different areas. So even though we have 4 iwi that overlap in the area where our school is, it's kind of an unwritten rule within the iwi that we come under the Ngāti Tamaoho umbrella. And so everybody else kind of leaves us alone so we can get on with that work with Ngāti Tamaoho, and vice versa. And we keep them in the loop, and we, like, when there's something big happening, like our big blessings or The official opening will one day happen sometime in the future. We'll invite the others, but in terms of the work alongside our curriculum and the place on the board and all of those other things, we just work with Ngāti Tamaoho. So it's worth finding just one person to talk to who can explain to you which iwi kind of has oversight in your area if you're in Auckland, so that you can remove that complication of trying to engage with all of them. Because, you know, the reality is that our Māori resource, people resource, is pretty limited, and the demands we are placing on them, particularly since the introduction of the Aotearoa New Zealand Histories curriculum, is huge, you know, and they are incredibly busy dealing with all sorts of other social challenges within our world. To be honest, in a lot of cases, you know, us ringing and asking for help with the pakiwaitari of the local area are probably not high on their list of priorities all the time. And so where possible, working with other local schools so that it's not 20 schools all asking the same question separately, but a group of 20 schools. If there are, where there are kahuiako, you know, there's a lot more success in engaging, because you can kind of, well, from their perspective and from a time efficiency perspective, it's much easier. So if you're not in a kahui, then finding some other schools that you can connect with and make that connection is going to help as well. And absolutely the face-to-face connection and relationship long before you ask for any sort of help or support, and offering that help and support back. You know, we found that during lockdown, just turning up to help with the food deliveries and the packing of the food parcels and things that they were doing things to give back really is quite important for building that relationship, so that it's not just us as schools demanding resource and time and effort and knowledge, but a kind of a genuine commitment to that reciprocity for them, so that it is you know, no partnership is a one-way street, right? That's been probably key for maintaining the relationship. Pretty hard to do because we're all so busy, but equally our mana whenua are pretty busy at the moment too, and are being drawn in so many different directions. We have to kind of recognise that they're not sitting there waiting for the local school to ring them and ask them for help. They're pretty busy.
Kia ora, Lisa. Thank you. Hey, Tony, I was just thinking back to the cultural narrative question around sustaining narrative through all aspects of the school. And I guess when you move, you know, you have your design and you've got some beautiful representation of narrative in your physical design. And then, in what other ways have you embedded the narrative into other aspects of your school?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we've formalised that through a series of artworks and weavings, etc. So you can at least see it. We've actually got a beautiful pāwaha, massive big upturned waka hull that's in a design phase. But it's even little stuff. Every time we go to the marae and hear from kaumātua, you pick up different things, and some of those stories and narrative, you learn more and more. So I think when you talk about there was a cultural narrative written for the school by someone from Ngāti Wairere before the board started. Once I came to meet Kui and kaumātua, that morphed, and we've actually rewritten it alongside them. But there's some beautiful little gems you pick up. One of them was around the second Māori king, King Tāwhiao, how we returned to our local marae, and powerful karakia to lift all the curses and that was going on, and said how the marae door will always be left open to all travellers, and just little stories like that, and we've reflected on that here. So we host lots of educator groups. Sometimes there might be 3 or 4 groups in a week. We never say no to that. Our local marae is well known for their manaakitanga and hospitality as well. We embrace that here and live and breathe that. So there's no koha necessary. We feed them, we look after them, and it's just to really embrace that deep, true intent. When I share that back with Ngāti Wairere, you just see them just brimming with pride. So in terms of the give back to them, if you can get that relationship right, it's just, you know, one of the other readings in the chat around the working from the Ngāko, not the Rāko, and just getting that real rich, deep intent, and can be so incredibly powerful to underpin a lot of what you would see, feel, hear in our school.